never made it, but I know what it takes. I'm motivated by a mix of emotion. Got my statement, and I'm reading it slow so I can understand it fully. Appreciate my standing, go out of this world and right on time. Oh, never in my life have I seen the sky light up like this. I'm far away from Earth and I wanna know if you exist. Mission control, do you read me? Send me my coordinates lately. Mission control, am I drifting? Tie me to someone who will love me, yeah. Wait, I think I'll last a bit longer. Fine.
Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. It is a Saturday, and I've been telling everybody for at least 2 weeks now that coming up on the 15th of April, which is today, that there were going to be a ton of college football spring games that are going to be happening. Used to, you could say, going to be on TV, but now there are only a couple that's actually going to be live on TV. So I'm going to run down a list of all the teams that have their spring game today. And then I have a question about kickers, because I heard this conversation yesterday and it got me to thinking and it got me to pondering. So I'm going to throw the question out there and see if we can get anybody to respond. But first, let's talk about all the teams that had their spring game today. We have LIU, Austin Peay, which I believe Austin Peay has a cheer that says, "Let's go Peay, let's go Peay." Boston College, Indiana, Middle Tennessee State, Ohio, Butler, and I'll be honest with you, I had no earthly idea that Butler had a football team. I know they're pretty good at basketball most years. They even played for the national championship one time against Duke a few years back, but never knew they had a football team. South Alabama, Cincinnati, Florida Atlantic, Ohio State, Southern Illinois, Western Carolina, Arkansas, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Mississippi State, Mississippi Valley State, Pittsburgh, Richmond, North Carolina, Ole Miss, South Carolina State, Liberty, Abilene Christian, Florida A&M, Illinois State, Michigan State, North Carolina Central, Norfolk State, Old Dominion, Penn State, the place where my dad's side of the family's from, Tennessee. Tennessee Tech has their spring game today. Texas, Virginia, Wake Forest, Western Michigan, the other Tennessee, the Volunteers, have their spring game today as well. Alabama State, Arizona State, Campbell, Howard, Southern Utah, Troy, USC, Utah State, Utah Tech, Virginia Tech, Weber State, Arkansas State, Florida State, Fresno State, Georgia, Jackson State, Texas A&M, Wagner, Tennessee State, California, Missouri State, Davidson, Arizona, Rice, South Carolina, and Tarleton State. And I believe out of all of those teams playing their spring game today, I believe there are 4 that are going to be on TV. I want to say Georgia's spring game is on, Ohio State's spring game is on, and I believe a couple of the Pac 12 teams have their spring game on the Pac 12 network, but I'm not sure you can count that or not as being on TV because I don't think anybody has the Pac 12 network, which is why the Pac 12 is trying to negotiate with other networks as far as picking up their college football games because nobody has the Pac 12 network. But that goes back to my conversation earlier in the week about whether or not we should just do away with spring games. I can recall less than 5 years ago on a day like today when you had 145 teams playing their spring game. There was a game on NBC. There was one on the local CW channel, depending on where you live at. There was one on ESPN, ESPN News, ESPN2, ESPN Classic. Fox Sports 1 had one. The regional Fox had one. CBS Sports Network had one. The NBC Sports Network had one. And now all of a sudden you've got all these spring games on, and 2 are on national TV, 4 if you have the Pac-12 network. So to me, that shows that nobody really cares about spring football anymore. And I have been saying for years that all the big-time Power 5 teams should play a local team there inside of their state, whether they're a group of 5 school or a FCS school, whatever, just so you're playing your spring game, but you're not playing yourself. And I've said that for years, and now all of a sudden, the last couple of years, people are actually talking about that. So I'm not saying it's ever going to happen, but I am saying that if other people are talking about it, there's a chance that it might actually happen. But if you've got all these spring games going on and none of them are on TV, then that tells you nobody cares about the spring football games anymore. And earlier this week, I heard that Ohio State's athletic director came out and said that Ryan Day has his vote of confidence, and it's a crying shame if Ryan Day has the record he has and he is on the hot seat at all. Now, I don't think he is. I think it's just the fact that they put so much into their rivalry with Michigan that they've lost to them 2 years in a row, and the fans don't know how to react, how to respond, because they have dominated Michigan for so long. Now all of a sudden they've lost to them 2 straight years and they're starting to panic. But I will say, if Ohio State loses to Michigan again this year, then Ryan Day might actually be in some trouble. Now, I have said here on the channel that I particularly don't like his offensive play calling. If you go back to this past year, when the season started, they had the best offense in the history of college football. But then as the year went on, the offense slowly but surely got worse and worse and worse. And then by early November, they completely stopped running the football. And they've got 2 running backs that might be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. And they just completely abandoned the run game. So I don't like Ryan Day's play calling. But to me, right now, I would say Ryan Day's the 4th best coach in college football. And you can order 1 through 3 ever how you want to with Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, and Dabo Swinney. But I'll say those guys are top 3. And I would say Ryan Day is right behind them. Now, any school in the history of the world that's ever fired their coach, if the fans don't like it, the fans always say, who are you going to get? And that's the laziest argument in the history of mankind. That goes back to what I've said before here on the channel. That's people that want to discuss it and want to have a conversation about it, but they know nothing. So just to have something to say, they say that. But in Ryan Day's case, you could legit say that because the only 3 coaches better than him, as I said, are Saban, Smart, and Swinney. And none of those 3 guys are going to leave their current school to go to Ohio State. So in Ohio State's case, you could say who you going to get, because the only three guys out there better than Ryan Day aren't leaving their program to go to the Buckeyes. So Ohio State better be careful, because I don't think Ryan Day would ever leave Ohio State for another college job. But there's been rumblings and grumblings for a couple of years now that Ryan Day is very interested in the NFL. And if he keeps supposedly being on the hot seat when he's top five year in, year out, I could see Ryan Day saying, you know what? If these fans ain't satisfied with top five every year, I'm gone. Not saying it's going to happen, but if the fans continue to fuss about winning 11 or 12 games every year, it could happen. Lastly, my question about kickers, and I heard this yesterday and it got me to pondering. I was listening to a guy that used to play football, and he was talking about all the games he played in where the game was decided, good or bad, one way or the other, by a field goal. And he said it feels so good when you're the quarterback of the team and you drive down the field and you get your team, inside the 30-yard line, 25-yard line, depending on how good your kicker is, and you call timeout, line up for a kick, he makes it, you win the game. But it's also extremely heartbreaking when the same thing happens and you drive down there and then the kicker misses the kick. And he said he feels like it would just be better if the game just got rid of kickers. Not that you don't need one, because right now with all the points being scored, you need one. But he said it's not fair that you've got guys out there for 3.5 hours busting their tails, doing everything they can, playing hard as they can, and you got a kicker that's on the sideline for 3 hours doing nothing, and all of a sudden he comes out there and he either wins the game or loses the game. And he even brought up examples of a punter that he played with. He said that punter was notorious for staying in the locker room and staying in the hot tub until it was about time to punt the ball, and he would get out, throw some clothes on, come out, punt the ball 60 yards, and then about 5 minutes to go in the first half, he would go back to the locker room and go ahead and jump back in the hot tub. And he said it's not fair to your teammates to be out there all game long busting their tails, and you're in the hot tub chilling out watching the game on the screen in the locker room until you think, oh crap, I've got to get out and go punt this ball. So he said he feels like it's better for the game to just get rid of kickers and put the entire game either on the defense's shoulders or the offense's shoulders, and let the guys that play the whole game decide whether you win the game or lose the game. And I thought about that all day long, and I can see his point either way. Yeah, you do need a great kicker, but at the same time, I see his point to where it would be extremely frustrating to see your teammate just chilling out in the hot tub all game long, and then all of a sudden come out and punt the ball and then go right back into the hot tub. So how do you feel about the whole situation? Do you think the game would be better without kickers, or do you think it's fine just the way it is? If you recall, there was a head coach who actually resigned from Presbyterian, but he was the first coach that I've ever heard of that did not believe in kicking at all. If he scored a touchdown, he'd go for two every time. And if his team had the ball, whether it was 4th and 2 or 4th and 40, he went for it. He did not kick the ball at all. And he said the law of averages shows that if it's 4th and 40, more than likely a punt ain't going to do you any better than going for it. If you go for it and you're on your own side of the field, you don't get it, the other team's going to score a lot faster, and you're getting the ball back a lot faster than you would putting the ball down the field and them driving the entire length of the field. So he didn't kick the ball or punt the ball at all. So I'd like to know how you feel about it. Would you actually be entertained by sitting down and watching a football game for 3.5 hours and not seeing any punts and any kicks? Or do you think it's something the game needs? Otherwise, it wouldn't be football without that aspect. Because as a fan, it's great and you love it when you're watching your team play and it's a nail biter game and they get the ball last and you've got a great kicker and you know that if your team just gets the ball inside the 30-yard line, unless it's blocked, it's going to go in. But it's extremely heartbreaking if you have a team and your team doesn't have a kicker and you get the ball late in the game and you're down by 2 and you're thinking, boy, if we don't score a touchdown, we're beat. There's no way our kicker is going to make anything beyond 20 yards because he sucks. So I can see it either way. Any thoughts on it, please feel free to let me know. Homes for Our Troops is a publicly funded 501c nonprofit organization that builds and donates specially adapted custom homes nationwide for severely injured post 9/11 veterans. Since the 2004 inception, nearly 90 cents of every dollar spent has gone directly to our program services for veterans. Visit at hfotusa.org. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. One sloth turned to the other and said, I never used to like moss, but now it's starting to grow on me. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.